So I was waiting a little bit. If you're impatient, just use a hairdryer. Make sure it's dry, entirely dry, before you start to add the outlines. And as before, I use a very big brush, fluffy brush with a lot of water in it, and I start to add water everywhere within the outline of the cat. Of course, it's not everywhere, but we talked about before where is the exception. So the exception is you can leave out where you want sharp white areas, and also you need to leave dry just very thin lines where the body parts are separated. Like in this case, it's the left front leg, and probably that's it, because the ear would be the other one, but the ear has the masking fluid. If you don't have the masking fluid, yes, you can just leave a little gap between the ear and the head, so it will help you to separate them later. And there is this back paw under the cat. That's also where you can leave space. Actually, you can leave that paw dry for now if you're doing this cat, because it's maybe just easier to add afterwards when everything almost ready. So make sure where you want it, the paper wet, it's very wet, and then start to add the colors. And again, work fast, go everywhere, develop the whole painting together, not just, don't go for details right now, just add the big color surfaces to your painting and allow it to flow and develop, because that's the soul of this technique, that you're using the flowiness of the watercolor. So you don't want it to flow everywhere. This is why we put the water in different places and different ways. So you need to control that flow, but you also need to allow it to happen where you need it to happen. So as you can see, I start to add the black. It's maybe a good idea to go with the lighter color first. It's not necessary, but actually it's a good idea. So same things apply. I just try to add the black also everywhere, especially because I want to see how they interact with the orange paint surfaces. So it needs some time to develop, so it's good if you develop everything together and work on the whole painting in the same time. So as you can see, when I add this black, the upper edge is sharp and the lower edge is furry. And this is why, because how I added the water in the beginning, I add sharp edge on the top and the back side, and on the front and the bottom side, it's the paper is wet, so it's flowing. And that's give you this good separation of the elbow. I think it's elbow, the elbow of the cat. Or maybe shoulder. No, it's elbow. It's the elbow of the cat. So with this technique, the outer edge is sharp. Wherever the water ends, that's where the paint can go. The paint cannot go further. I try to imagine what kind of tail this cat has. I use a paper towel to remove some color. It's hard with this paper. This paper don't have a good sizing, and the paint is going much deeper right away, and you can't eliminate the paint as well as with the previous paper of mine, which was Archie's or Arch. I don't know what is the correct pronunciation. So this paper is kind of not an easy paper, but it's still a watercolor paper, a thick one. It's probably 140, 200 lb. Yeah, and don't go for thin paper with thin paper, because this technique requires a lot of wetness, but not everywhere. So just some area is very wet, and the other is completely dry, and the whole thing get very wavy. So I tried to add a little water on the edge, on the back, just on the back of a cat, because as I said, this technique generates very sharp edges, and I wanted a little bit more furry on the back side of the cat. It didn't go as well, but so I removed when it's overflow too much, but still the edge became a little bit less sharp, what I wanted. But when I did this, it generated a little mess, so I have to dilute up very fast with clean water and remove it, the mess around. Yeah. If you want, you can try, but maybe it's not the time. I just wanted a little bit more like furry backside. So I'm not doing this on a head, for example, because I want the head sharp. But the backside is a little bit, you can see the fur is fluffier. So opposite to the previous one, I will add shading to this one. So I'm not just adding colors or the color dots, but you can see that the bottom side, like a belly side, and the neck area is darker because the head gave shade there. And so I'm trying to add some shading, and how I'm doing this, I just add a very, very light, like a dirty brush, just a very light color, like mostly gray, to those areas where you can see shading. So it's not staying the same as the white paper. You don't want, I mean, it just look better. It separates, because otherwise there is no outline. So like here, the front side of the cat this is how it separates from the paper. And also it's a 3D shape, so it has shades. So I'm trying to add those shades a little bit. Sometimes I use a little bit to draw with the back of my, the other side of my brush with the wood. It's kind of a dangerous technique, but it's used a lot. Where you use it, you make a dentation on the wet watercolor paper, and then the paint goes there and it will sitting on that dentation, and it's not possible to remove. It stays there. It's going very deep into the fibers. And but it's really good to draw, like, for example, those little lines between the fingers, for example. You can draw a very nice little line with it. It's not immediately visible. That's the other hard thing with it. You need to wait until the watercolor particles start to settle in this little damaged paper, but it will happen, and it generates lines. I just used it for the front paw. Yeah, I tried to remove a little more black and replace it with a little more orange. So I'm adding some line, but I will immediately loosen them up. So I'm not adding line, actually, I'm adding shades. Make sure it's not super strong. Just helping with the shading and the separation of the body parts.